time has finally come to give our review of the final Evangelion rebuild movie, and it is taken us 9 years to finally get the movie, but we have it, and here's our review from Chibi Podcast. You got me, David Smash Fan.
Smash Tech Guy.
Mister.
I'm Japan.
And it's been way long that we waited for this. I remember when we did our first video back in 2012 or I can't remember 2013, and we were saying like, oh, the movie's gonna come out in 2015, but in the US it's gonna come out 2016, 2017, and we were all dead wrong. We waited way longer than we were supposed to. But it is time, and let us get started with this. So the way I wanted to do it was we're gonna do spoiler free first, and then we'll go into spoilers later on. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So let us go in and talk. Well, let's talk in general. I want to ask you all the questions. So overall, this movie as a concluding movie, what did you guys think about it? Without going too much into detail.
I enjoyed it though after the whole movie ended, because midway through beginning was kind of a little slow, but then overall was pretty good, solid. I gave it a solid 7.5.
I think for me it was more the fact it was amazing, but like watching there's just so much going on for your brain to absorb. It wasn't until like after I really appreciated it. So I kind of agree with Diego. Like the journey there was just kind of overwhelming. You have to like process everything, but I know it has a lot to kind of explain. Obviously, being the last one, but overall, yeah, I'd probably give it an 8.5.
Okay, Japan, how about you?
I was gonna say, I think I told you guys before, like, I'm happy and sad, because it's something that I've been waiting for a really, really long time. And being able to have a particular ending on this, I really like it. I think in comparison to all the other stuff, without going too much into detail, it has been a great movie. At least to me. It answered a lot of questions, if you will, gaps that I was missing. Of course, like Miles did mention, there's a couple of things that you need to digest here and there. But overall, like for me, I think it was a solid at least 9.
Okay. I'm in the same campus as Japorion here, so I actually watched it 2 more times to kind of grasp everything about the movie, to digest it and to see what else did I miss here. And I think that the most general parts or the major parts I understood the first time, but watching the second and third time, they're just small little things that I appreciated more, and it made me truly enjoy, and to me personally, make it rewatchable, and to conclude not the rebuild series but just the Evangelion series in general. To close that, I thought it was very satisfying. And
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you watch the second, third time? Do you watch it dub, or do you actually watch the original?
I've watched all of them subbed and dubbed.
So you have watched it dub?
I have watched it dubbed, yep.
Okay. Okay, so my question is, I wanted to know, because I don't know if you guys have seen it, Miles or Diego, but I heard there was a lot of complaints for the dubbing in the English part. I don't know anything about it, because you guys know me, I
What
usually
kind of
don't watch it.
complaints did you hear though? Do you know what complaints were?
Yeah. I was talking to a couple of friends who are also Evangelion fans, and they were telling me that they were kind of disappointed at the dubbing option, like the people that reprised the roles, because obviously they didn't have all of them.
So you mean by performance?
The
take?
performance?
Yeah, voice acting performance.
Okay, so
The English dub of
Okay,
that.
so you're saying the voice actors themselves weren't good, not necessarily like a translation issue.
okay, that's all that was mattered.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either what he was defining.
Yeah, so that's why I just wanted to verify. I just wanted to know. Well, look, I never watched any of the dub sections, so for you, I'm assuming you guys probably watched the dub version of this as well. At least for David, since he actually watched it again. Do you find any particular complaint or comparison? I'm kind of curious because, to be honest, I really don't know. This is what I just heard.
In the dubbing, I mean, I had no issues with it. In terms of their performance, the one that I felt was kind of not the best for this movie, at least the fourth one, was Shinji's. Don't get me wrong, I think he did really well. And he did well. I think my favorite performance of him, I think his name is, I think it's Scott or Spike Spencer, I can't remember. But I think my favorite performance of his was the second movie. And he was the original Shinji from the anime. So I didn't have too much issues with it. You can tell though that there's just a difference, and again, I don't think it's not their talent. I think it was director wise that there was something that just wasn't like portrayed the way it should have been, that it was in the Japanese. So I mean I can kind of see it, but it wasn't enough to be like, oh, I can't believe.
The reason I'm asking is because
of what?
Okay. Yeah, because I was gonna tell you, because what I was talking to a couple of friends on that, and they felt like the part of the voice recast felt rushed, like they were just trying to grab whoever.
But again,
I don't know, to be honest, if this is true or not. This is why I'm just passing the information. I just went to
right, but almost everyone except for Rei Ayanami were the same people that were in the original anime and in the previous movies. So I don't know what they're talking about. The Netflix one was the one that was different. That had no one reprise the roles. That one I didn't like.
The only thing I could think of what he's trying to say is maybe the recording wasn't great. Like it probably sounded not the greatest, so it could have been rushed, is what he's trying to say.
Maybe, but I don't know.
But I don't know, because like I said, I haven't listened to.
Oh no, I haven't seen it. I don't know anything about it.
The way you're saying it sounds like you're saying they rushed the recording, and it just doesn't sound that good. But I don't know.
Well, that's the way that I was told. That it felt like the dubbing itself.
I think we're getting off topic. So, what do you guys all think about the animation?
It was good. It's always good.
Overall, I did like it. I think there were some things that, some of the 3D CGI stuff, or the time that they wanted to use it, was kind of weird. I was like, there was one part, I think you've seen in the trailer, where they have Mari and Asuka like in their spacesuits, in the white spacesuits, and they're floating in, and you can tell it's 3D.
Fan service kind of part one.
Yeah, like right before. Yeah,
it like zooms in on their butts as they keep like kind of going upsy downsy in zero gravity.
Yeah, it wasn't like this weird angles that got to me. It was just more like the 3D on there was weird, and it just felt out of place, and I didn't like that. Like there was some parts like that too. Like I think in one of the Evangelion fights, near the end, that one also was kind of I mean, and we'll go more into the ending later, but there's like different animations that they use at near the end to describe like what the final climactic conflict was, that they changed the animation was, but that 3D one also was kind of meh to me. It wasn't on par to what they were in the beginning of the movie and in the middle.
For me, I think the animation was pretty good. I think there's three particular points that really got my attention, and I think one I already pointed out with Miles is at the very beginning, the way that they show, without going into spoilers, like that first part, how like it looked on television, or or whatever you want to present it. It looked really defined. It looked like something for a high definition television, just being able to see the background of the location. The other part was in the second half of the movie. I don't want to go too much into spoilers, but the way that they animate a certain section of a fight was amazing. I really thought that was awesome. And then there was another part almost at the very end that gets a callback to the end of Evangelion, the movie. And the way they animated it was creepy, but really cool. I think this stepped it up quite a notch, at least for me.
One thing I want to add that was really cool about the animation is it's very rare to see HDR in anime, and this had full-on HDR support, and that was incredible to see, just the extra contrast and like the lighting and the sun and the bright spots where it just brightens up the entire TV. It's not normal to see HDR. It's usually just SDR with your TV just supporting an HDR feature. But this actually had true HDR, and luckily we were able to watch it on a TV that had native HDR with good nit brightness, and it was definitely an experience to watch an anime like that. But
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of 3D, and I know you guys have heard me complain all the time. This was the first movie that did it in a way that didn't really bug me too bad. And I actually thought they did it pretty good. I mean, there were some weird scenes, but they weren't so bad to the point where it's like, say, they weren't like a Netflix like show where they're full on, or like you know what I mean? I had major issues with like the Broly movies, some of the 3D. Like that really pissed me off when it looks like an effing video game. But they didn't really have that big of a 3D, and I respect that for the majority of like 95% of the movie was all hand drawn, and there was some scenes where they do a lot of pan arounds the characters in this, and it's fully drawn, and it is insane to see that, and you're just like, damn, this had a good budget.
Yeah, that's true. One thing that I wanted to point out, and this is actually why the reason why I love Evangelion, especially the movies, was the music, the soundtrack that it has, because it is so awesome to how they used different classical pieces, different, like, I'm assuming children's songs from Japan, and how they incorporated it into the movie, in all the movies overall, and it gave you like this eerie tone whenever they implement it, because you're like, you don't associate Joy to the World with the scene that's coming up, or that children's song in Japanese that plays when Evangelion goes berserk in the second movie, and basically the part where we think Oscar gets killed, like just all those parts, it
has some weird song choices, but it would fit, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? And all of that was actually on purpose, to identify certain elements of the characters as well. So that was pretty neat as well. So it was everything intentionally.
Very symbolic. I think the whole show, not just the music, but like the animation in scenes, music in scenes, dialogue in scenes, colors in scenes. It's just very artistic. The amount of thoughts that we don't realize as viewers, that like one 10-second clip can have so much meaning in whatever form, whether it's music, animation, whatever it is. It's incredible.
Yeah, and Hideki Anno itself, he's a very perfectionist individual, making his movies as well. I was actually watching a documentary about him recently, about the finishing up this particular movie, and I noticed that he was very picky, and if he didn't like a particular scene, he just tossed it away and started going back and redoing it again to a particular way that he can present it.
He reminds me in a way of, like, if anybody has ever played any of the Nier series, Taro Yoko. That guy's incredible with like innuendos and bigger meanings to films, of where you're not realizing that it might have something to do with like an 1800th century book or philosophy and stuff, and that's all in Evangelion, where you can pick like subtle scenes and they actually mean like a novel verse. It's insane.
Yeah, I keep saying it's a transition, but one thing I wanted to bring up, and this is probably the final thing before we go into our spoiler part, but overall the ending, like I said, we'll talk more about the ending in detail, but overall the ending of this movie, what did you enjoy the final ending, like the resolution of the whole build up to this ending was? Like, did you enjoy it? Did you feel like it was meh? Did you not understand it, or were you expecting something completely different, or something maybe more in a different tone?
So I'll go first because I'm not an Evangelion fan at all, or Hideaki fan. I've stated it time and time again. This ending was good for what he did. What's funny is he, with the Rebuild series, made the series how people perceived the original Evangelion, where there was more depth to it, where in interviews before he said there wasn't any depth to the original series. He's just a depressed dude who was going to off himself before he wrote this. Where now he's like, let's make depth to this series, and there's deeper meanings to this. So him trying to do that, he did it really well. And I'll tell you this much: as much as I don't like him and a lot of the stuff he's written, this is actually really good. The Rebuild series.
He's just mad
So-
still about Shin Godzilla. He's like, no.
That's fucking dumb shit. But yeah, no. But overall, like his Rebuild series is good. Overall, solid 9. The Rebuild series.
Yeah, so the ending for me was really interesting, in a good way. Like I wasn't expecting that ending. I will tell you that much. Like
True.
I honestly was not. I wasn't know what to expect how he was going to end this. But kind of going back to like what Paul and what Diego was saying. Like I also listened to some interviews about him talking about the Rebuild series, and when he talked at Comic-Con, he talked about how when they started the movie, he already knew how it was going to end. So the ending of this movie was already in stone. It was just how he got there. And so when I read that, I was like, you know what? I wonder how they would have gotten to this ending if the third movie was done in a similar way that the preview was telling us it was going to be. You know, I'm like, it honestly, like, it wouldn't work unless he did do that, the third movie, the way that he did. I'm not saying that it's still it's still, for me, I'm not the biggest fan of the movie, but of the third movie, but I appreciate it more because it's like it had to happen that way so that we could get to the fourth movie and to end it the way that it did, in the way that he intended it. Again, maybe the outcome or the way there would have been different. It might not have been as good had he not done the third movie the way that he did. So it was odd. Like reading that, watching the movie gave me a new perspective on the entire Rebuild series and actually made me appreciate each one more. Even though I still am not the biggest fan of the third movie, again, I have to reiterate, I do appreciate it more because it does set up what's supposed to happen in the fourth one.
I think I'll go next. So, going on a particular ending, let me just tell you this much. When I first started watching the movie, I mean, of course, a lot of people have seen how it starts, maybe the first 10 minutes of the movie. You get a particular feeling of how the movie is going to be. But after that, I was surprised of what they did. The changes that they did at the very beginning, after the opening scene, I think at the ending as well. I know that this movie initially was supposed to be a love letter to his wife. And I can see why the choices that were done had to be this particular way. To make something new. And how, in addition to having new characters in the movie as well, how that complemented the ending to have a different take. To stop the cycle that the previous movies or the previous show had. Overall, I gotta say, I was quite surprised. I know that a lot of fans may be disappointed at how it ended for certain particular reasons. But overall, I think it was different. It was out of the box in order to have a final resolution on the movie. And I think that would make it really cool and interesting to me. It's not expected, different. It was able to provide a proper conclusion to the story. To fill all the gaps that we were missing in the previous movies, and Shinji itself, who he ends becoming at the end, who he becomes at the very end.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool to see a particular change and grow to have an ending that was satisfactory for a lot of people.
Miles, you?
I mean, I agree with what you said on the third movie. I still, I mean, I guess I can appreciate it, but I still can't drive myself to go watch that movie just because I really hate that movie. But I do understand the fact of how it did get us to where we're at now. The ending was really good, and I liked the ending. And once you kind of figure out what the whole thing was getting at, but dissatisfaction I did have for sure. Okay, I guess I won't critique it for the fact that it ends just like any other Japanese type anime where, you know, you get just like a few seconds or like, a minute or two ending of resolution and that's it. And it's not really like overly satisfying. It kind of ends in the same sense of like how Your Name ends in a way. But I guess the problem I had is I wish there was, it just shows closure on a couple of characters, but not the majority of the cast. And that I kind of had a problem with. But other than that, I mean, it was really good. It was kind of I really like the whole gotcha, what the heck kind of moment, It really adds one of those moments where you don't know where it's going to end. And the whole build up to the ending, it kind of reminded me of Promare, where, it kind of starts here and then adrenaline rises. And next thing you know, it's just balls to the wall. Like, what am I watching? It kind of did that, but then all of a sudden it transitions to this ending that you're like, whoa, I was not expecting them to do that. Wait, what? But overall, I mean, it has an ending that I think, I don't think it could have ended better on, I guess, necessarily on a design choice. I mean, sure, I would have liked a little bit more expansion on the ending, but overall, I think how it got there was really nice and pleasant. I really did enjoy the ending.
Nice. All right, so I think that's it for our spoiler-free part. So, listeners, if you've gotten this far and you want to not hear the spoiler parts, I suggest you get off now because we're going to start talking about spoilers. And if you already watched the movie, then sit on in and leave us a comments about parts that you liked and didn't like as you listen. So there's your warning. Here we start. So one thing I gotta say, and I think we've thought about this, I think we all thought it because we talked about it right after the movie.
Give us the credit we deserve. Give us the credit we deserve. Do it.
Is we were right, fools. For those that have listened to our previous review of 3.0, our theory was like, this has to be some sort of like, it's a sequel, that the events happened before, and this is just it's happening again. Why, I don't know, but it's happening again. And I remember there's just some guy saying like, no, the director said, no, it's just like Easter eggs about that are hinting to or just Easter eggs about the original series. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And we asked, we're like, okay, well, show us the, where they said that. Nothing. So here in the movie, we were proven correct. This has happened not just once, but this happened multiple times. Kaoru, when he's talking to Shinji at the end, you see all the boxes, right, that look like coffins, and in the first movie you see him emerge out of one, and you see coffins like to the right of him, to the left of him, and some of them, the ones like onto his right are empty, the ones on the left are closed, and then in that part we are told that yes, this has happened multiple times, that Kaoru has witnessed Shinji basically fail multiple times and never like really achieve what he wanted, and that he is happy that this time, this is like finally, this ends the loop. And it was so satisfying. I'm like, yes, we were right. But it was also satisfying because in the title for the Evangelion, for Thrice Upon a Time, at the end you see the little repeat stop sign, which in music it has the two little dots and then the line, and typically it means that when you get to that point the first time, you have to go back to wherever the other repeat sign is and then play that part again, and then it finishes. So that was another clue saying, yeah, this happened again, we're repeating it again, but we're finishing it this time. So to me it was really satisfying that we were right all along. So yay us.
Credit due.
But okay, aside from that, another thing that I thought that I actually, okay, this doesn't redeem him, okay, I'm not saying he redeems him, but but understanding him is what we got was about Shinji's dad, Gendo, and like why he did what he did, right? Like we always talked about, like in the original series, we heard like, he wants to meet his wife again, but it like nothing was really expanded too much aside from that she was gonna pilot the Eva and then got sucked in. But in this one, like they have this talk, and it's very reminiscent of the last two episodes of the anime, but now it's Gendo and Shinji talking in like different stages, like when they're fighting, they visit different places from both the Rebuild series and the train that was in the end of Evangelion, and it's interesting to see how he felt, how he was exactly like Shinji, and what drove him to basically go mad and to solely focus on bringing back his wife.
To interject on that too, that scene when they're fighting in the alt universe and their memories of battling become their thoughts of stableness, and to go to all these different worlds they're thinking, what an insane moment.
Yeah.
I mean, to think of that, dude.
Symbolic. Yeah. I think for me, in a sense, watching that particular part, it kind of reminded me of Attack on Titan. The ending of Attack on Titan. Without the ending of Attack on Titan.
Skip that. Ignore.
Yeah, but just gonna say, if once people finish Attack on Titan, they could see there's some similarities in there on that particular part. But I was gonna mention that finally we actually get to understand his motives. Like David was saying, the previous movies and the show itself left it incomplete. You can definitely understand he was a horrible father.
But he still gets anime's worst dad, right? He still gets that.
Right.
That does not change.
But in this particular movie, you get to finally understand his actions and how, basically, because he was not a very social person, very, I don't know, being able to interact with other people, and how that actually shaped him to become who he becomes at the very end of the movie. But it's kind of cool to see that Shinji also grows up. He overcomes his challenges. Because you know, through the whole movie and through the whole series, a lot of people complain about Shinji. Like, he complains a lot, he cries a lot. And I can understand why. And I can also understand why he goes through all that. If you have a horrible father who doesn't even support you, you know, you might turn out something like that. But at the end, he was able to overcome all of his grief and all of his pain by having to support his friends, who, I gotta say, I was not expecting to see his schoolmates appear again after many years. It was really awesome and really cool to see, and some of their interactions, it felt like it was more complete. And of course, maybe you can call it fan service or not in a sense, but it really helped not also provide a good storytelling, but also help build up Shinji so he can overcome and challenge his dad and solve the issue that's been going on, you know, to provide that solution at the end.
Here's the real question: is this after all this movie, I still am kind of confused about Mari, because she was like,
okay,
let's talk about this, because again, to me, and we talked about it after watching the movie, but it seemed like she was in the flashbacks with Gendo when he was in the university, in the labs, and when he meets his wife. Am I wrong? Did we see her?
Those pictures look like her, yeah.
No, you know what? It was her. Yeah, but hold on. On top of that, there was that one side manga of Mari as well. But he revealed that was not fan service. So do you think that was more of an Easter egg? I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would guess a little Easter egg, but still, that's something that I would like. We were talking about in the movie for Sunday, because I'm still trying to figure out. But I was trying to do some research on it to see who Mari was, and the only thing that they actually find, and maybe people that listen to this will correct me or not, but yes, I think I hear two particular theories that either, she was a scientist that grew up with Shinji's mom and all that, but she perhaps did some experiments with the LCD fluid or LCL fluid to appear young, and also the part of the course of the Evas that they don't age. Maybe that has to play a little part on that as well. But that's all the information they was able to gather.
I want to ask you a question on top of that, actually, to add to that. With what we know from her, remind me, I don't know if it was number 1 or number 2, but I know she's British, but didn't they say she's one of the American pilots, or is she actually from, like, somewhere else?
No, she is British descent.
She is British descent, but I
Uh,
thought she said she was in America is where she came from. Am I confusing that? Am I wrong?
I can't remember.
She was in Americas when the movie started, and
That's what I'm thinking. She
her
came from
name is
America when
actually
she
based on
arrived.
two particular. Right,
Okay.
and
Okay, so she was originally an American pilot though before she was a pilot in Japan. Am I understanding
well-
that right or no?
from what I was able to get understand, she is British, but she grew up in America. Okay,
But she was an American pilot though, right? Wasn't she piloting in America and then she came to Japan to help out?
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
she came to Japan. Yeah, and she has. It's kind of interesting because the last name that she has, it was actually based on two particular Navy votes in Japan. Or one is Japanese and the other one is British. But yes, it's something that, I mean, to a lot of people, she could be considered an enigma. But at the same time, now that we're talking about her, I think she's the character that makes a big difference into the other movies than this movie. And the fact that the ending, how Shinji ended, where it made sense. But this is the particular point that I can see that a lot of people, or a lot of fans from the previous series, could be complaining a lot. Because I also heard that a lot of people didn't like Mari in the previous movies, and knowing that she ends with Shinji, throw some people off.
I think the biggest
got people
issue,
mad.
and I think a lot of people have had issues with Mari, is she has a lot of screen time in these movies, but not character development wise.
I think that was done on purpose.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean? I mean, that's where I think it's causing some frustrations for people is because people are attached to like Rey or Asuka because we've had a lot of character development with them. Not just from the TV show, but the movie alone also has established a lot of character development, makes you care. I mean, Mari, yeah, we care about to a degree, but we don't have a lot more detail with her. I mean, every single scene she's had with Shinji has been mostly just like fan servicey. There's not really been like very like deep talks. Like you know what I mean? Like the most characterized. I think why there's so many Asuka and Shinji fans is because they've had, I think, the most character development between their talking relationships. Where she's been only interacting with the main character with fan service for the majority of it, at least.
So here's my 2 cents on this thing of why Mari was essential to this, but also why they didn't give her like a lot of character development. And it has to do with what Shinji said at the end, or what he understood. And it was the fact that he wanted to be loved and he wanted to love as well. But the one thing they learned is like he can't love something or someone and expect to be loved back. Like he can't expect that. He just needs to, if he does love something, to love it, and that way he can be selfless. And for that reason, like that's why he wanted, he wanted to give happiness to Asuka and to Rey, and basically he needed to do stuff on his own, right? And so he gave this life to Asuka, to live with Kensuke, which I know some people say that she's in love with him. I don't know. It's not really hinted at. Could be, but I've heard people talk, but there's not enough information. Rey gets to live, her life, but without Ava's and not remembering anything about this. And really, I think the purpose that Mari served was that she is that one connection that to Shinji, where everything that happened before the restart of the world, she's a reminder that like this actually did happen. Like you did rewrite the world. You did. Yeah, I remember it too. Just to give cover to Shinji that he did change something. Cause it goes back to like when she meets Shinji when they're in Wonder again, and she puts her hands over his eyes and says, "Who is it?" And then she explains who she is, with the glasses and the big boobs and stuff. And then she does that at the train station at the end. And I think this is just a way for her to basically confirm to Shinji, yeah, we both went through this hell of a thing, and we both remember it, and I'm just here to remind you that we both went through it, and you did change, and now we're better. Like, I think like I don't think I think that was the whole purpose of Mari, just to be that comfort there for at the end. Again, maybe that's not like it's not a satisfactory answer, but that's like the only thing I could think of like that makes her like important, is that she's just that remaining thing of what Shinji went through, and basically saying that it was all worth it, and giving the happiness to all the people that he loved, and to show that he doesn't need that love back, he's not with them. That's kind of what I've formulated in my mind.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And something else that I did want to point out as well, like somebody pointed out that when Mari sings, all the songs that she sings are from the 1960s and 70s in Japan, so it's from an older generation, and that's what I'm referring with the song and some of the music. Like that, a lot of people are trying to indicate the way that she acts, the way her mannerisms, it's a little bit outdated. So it does appear that she's actually a lot older than she appears to be. So I do wish, because I know that this is a final ending. I do wish that maybe if Anno decide to come back and touch some Evangelion. I don't know if he's gonna do it. He said no. He said yes in a couple of interviews. But if he wants to do something, I would like to learn more who Mari is and how she fits the puzzle into this particular scenario. Because like I said, we know very little of her, but then again, she is an important asset in the movie series, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that is true, whether you like it or not. But any final thoughts from you guys? Spoiler or whatever, maybe.
Yes, I did want to mention about. Yeah, no, I do want to mention the 3 particular scenes that I really love and really enjoyed. Like I said, one is the whole HDR presence after the credits, when they were actually showing Shinji, Asuka, and Rei in the field doing some manual work, something that I was not expecting in an Evangelion movie. It was very nice, and it was very well designed and presented. The whole
They're pretty
illustration, yeah, it looked very pretty and very awesome. So they did a really good job on that. The second part was when Asuka went into beast mode. I think that part was the coolest thing in the whole movie. When how much of the illustration, all the designs were done to show that. I think that is a cool anime moment, regardless of who you may be. I think that part was really awesome. And the third part for sure was the creepy part, the one in which you see the creepy Ray appear.
I hated
reference
that.
to Dead Evangelion.
I don't like that
It
either.
looked really creepy. It looked really creepy, but at the same time, it felt like an Easter egg. And it was recurring. It was an update of what they did before. They were able to make us feel uncomfortable, like in the previous movies, with that particular scene. But they stepped up a notch. So I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, again, it worked for him, but I still don't ever want to see that face again. That thing was freaking weird. Ugh.
That'll haunt my nightmares
Yeah.
forever.
Ugh. What about you, Miles? And wait, Paul, was that your 3?
But yeah, overall, okay.
That's one.
I was gonna say. No, I'll let Miles continue. Sorry. Go ahead,
I
Miles.
actually want to hear Diego, actually.
Well, what did I like from the movie?
Just
What
your
are you
overall,
asking?
your final thoughts, or something you want
what I
to
was
mention that
saying-
you like.
I just liked how it was like. It's funny. This wasn't more of like. It wasn't a robot fighting robots movie. This one, it was barely not much. It was more like mental, the mental anguish and like character growth and overcoming these crippling disabilities that some of these characters had, in their mental, and I think they did it well enough. And obviously there were shortcomings with other things, but I just really liked it. I mean, you were thinking that it was going to just be this big battle all the time, but it wasn't that big. It was good, but it was still really good. I don't know. I just enjoyed it. It was good.
All right, nice, Miles.
Yeah, there's some scenes in there that were were interesting for me. So the biggest thing I've always liked about Evangelion is usually the characters, like their the soft moments they have, not so much the action. I thought one of the most beautiful, my favorite moments of the whole show was actually Misato when she acknowledged Shinji as a kid she raised as a son. And I think she knew she was most likely going to do an inevitable sacrifice. I didn't like seeing her dying, and I didn't think it was necessarily needed, but I did think it was very beautiful. Especially to get that last spear to save everything was just very important for her character. But I just really liked when she just hugged him after she got shot and acknowledged him as a son. I thought that was just really, really great. I think Asuka had the best fight scene out of all, especially the ending when she went full beast mode, because we didn't really understand what was below the eye patch. That was really, really, really cool. These are just like some of my highlights of like the show. I don't know. The race stuff, I guess I could have done without. Ever since we had the original die throughout the original movies, that just kind of ruined anything further for me with that. Shinji was still annoying, and I don't care about any of his redemption. I still hate the character. I think he's hot garbage. Still to this day, he's a shit character in my opinion. But other than that, no. I just I think this put a new tier for me on what I can expect for animation these days with anime and high budget films like this. And I think the last best film I've seen in animation was definitely the Demon Slayer movie that we just had, but I think I actually liked this a little bit more. I liked how it kept a little bit more of the original drawings. I just felt like we've been getting way of that design lately in anime, and I felt this was definitely a lot more hand-drawn. So to me, it was just a spectacle masterpiece, in my opinion. I'm not sure if it's necessarily my favorite out of the 4 films, but I definitely probably put out there as my second, and I think the first is still my favorite. Well, I don't know. I'll do that another day. But I thought it was phenomenal. It's definitely a spectacle masterpiece.
All right. One thing I wanted to add, like 2 things really quickly. I do like this. I'm actually on the opposite end of Miles about Shinji. It's interesting because I think in most animes, like we want to see like this change happen like at like a climactic moment, and they stay that way forever. And Shinji wasn't that way. He kept regressing back to what he was in the beginning of the show, and it's funny because it actually to me made it more real. Like I still hated watching it. It's like I was like, come on, man, you have to like step up. But I kept thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? How many times have I had something happen to me and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna change now, and then it takes me a lot longer to get to that point where I'm actually progressing. And in the 4th movie, we got to see it where, even though it took us 8 years to see what happened, for this 4th movie, at the end of the 3rd one, he just saw one of his friends, like his dearest friends, get killed, and then they had to walk, with Asuka and Rei, to a place to that town, and so they had to process that. It took him a while. I don't know how long they were in the village, maybe a month or something like that, but he eventually got to the point where he was starting to talk again and progressed to the Shinji that we know at the very end, which is he's kind of not cocky, but he's like a little sly, especially with Mari. So I really enjoyed that. It was a lot more real.
He gets the girl.
I don't know if he gets. Here's the thing. I don't know if he actually is with Mari. I just know that he's now comfortable and confident. That's what was shown. Whether he's with Mari, I don't know. It could be. That's up to your interpretation. But watching the whole, watching the 4th movie and reflecting on the entire series as itself, I really am blown away at how much I actually enjoy this entire series. Not just the movie, but Evangelion. Everything together puts it up higher on like animes I was just watching, and it wouldn't be like watch the anime or watch the movies. Like I believe to get the full picture and to really appreciate the Evangelion series, you have to watch the movies and the anime, and that way you'll complete and understand, and the ending of the 4th would be more satisfactory in my opinion. So that's something I suggest to everyone. Yeah, it'll just be more satisfactory.
I agree with you on that.
But yeah, so thanks for listening, guys. I know it was a little bit longer, but I think this movie needed that length to talk because there's so much to go over, and there's still more stuff to go over, and we might go over those at different times. But let us know what you guys liked, what you didn't like. Leave a comment below, like and share this with everyone, and we'll see you next time. I know this is the end of Evangelion, but it's not the end for us. We'll keep doing our podcast episodes and new videos. So signing off. Yeah, just the beginning. So signing off. This is David the Smash Man.
Monster Tech Guy.
Mister.
I'm Japorian. Really, guys, watch this. It will blow your mind.
And this is Chibi no Podcast.